to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey friends, welcome back to the 911 Strong podcast. With me as always is Kristen.
Hi.
And we have a very special guest today with us. And before I go into the guest, I want to talk to you about some stuff that's really important to me. That's police equipment. You know, I'm a big
Yes,
gear junkie.
It should be.
Well, I'm a big gear junkie. And if you look around the room, I've got tons of gear that I don't use. My wife complains about it. Ofer, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but when I turn this camera on, you'll see all the gear that's here. Some people go on eBay and buy car parts and camera parts. I buy police gear, but I get it from one source, and that's Carolina Defender.
Nice.
You've heard about Carolina Defender.
I have.
Ofer, I know you've heard of Carolina Defender. They're the number one stop for police gear. If I could have made my own shop and put all the brands I like and all the gear I wanted in one website, I would have created Carolina Defender. He beat me to it. I wish I would have done it because he's a rich guy now. What's even better is he's a cop.
Nice.
Yeah, super down-to-earth guy. Steve has made this website the way I would have made it. If you have a question about police gear, he'll have an answer. You can follow him on Instagram.
Oh.
So if you want the best police gear, military gear, lifestyle gear that has anything to do with tactical equipment, you got to visit Carolina Defender. That's Carolina Defender at carolinadefender.com.
Nice.
Awesome.
Okay. And Father's Day is going to be coming up soon.
Oh yeah,
Like
it
after
is.
we release this.
Yeah, and the best part is Carolina Defender gave us a discount code for our listeners only. So right now, if
Nice.
you use code 911 strong, 911 strong, all one
Together.
numbers and letters at carolinadefender.com, you get a huge discount exclusive to our listeners.
Cool. So we can purchase something for our husbands or spouses
Yeah.
and a discount and be winning for Father's
Yeah, why are you
Day.
spanking the table?
I have no idea.
She's spanking the table so it ingrains in your head. That's right, Carolina Defender. All right.
carolinadefender.com.
That's right.
All right.
All right. Well, today we have a very special guest. You might know him on Instagram. He's a very popular account as Trauma Pack.
Yes.
He is a firefighter. Today, our guest is Ofer Lichtman. How you doing, Ofer?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know there's a lot of tension right now because Ofer's a fireman.
Oh, yeah.
You know, these
He's one of
fire
those
guys.
America's heroes.
I know. The glory guys. I get to go shopping and work out on duty. No, all kidding aside, we love our firefighters. We have a very, we mentioned it before, firefighters and police officers have this known rivalry, but it's the kind of rivalry that, you know, brothers and sisters have.
Mhm.
You know, we will be the first to make fun of each other, but the first one to back each other up when
Right.
it hits the fan.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
how you doing, brother?
Absolutely. And we all share the same goal. You know, we all wanted to be firefighters. So I think that's what really makes us all.
Hey, I'm the one that makes
All,
your Ofer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gosh, just like a firefighter, always trying to steal my thunder. No, I'm just kidding. Feel free to. We want people to know your
You
personality.
can pick on Aram all you want. I do.
I know. I'm the punching bag around here. But Ofer is a pretty neat guy.
Yeah.
So his
Jack
page,
of all trades.
Yeah, he's a terrorist liaison officer, which means he gets to work with intel,
Mhm.
pretty super secret stuff. And he's also a paramedic. So that's where the Trauma Pack website comes from. Teaches tactical wound care and
Yeah.
rescue stuff. He does a cool thing that I actually wanted to do is he drives fire trucks. He's a fire engineer also. So we have a lot to talk about, Ofer. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you decide that being a police officer was going to be too hard for you and you decided to be a firefighter?
So, you know, I'm glad you asked. So as I was looking for an actual real job, I decided, so I was actually never planning on being a firefighter. I was really interested in the medical route. So I actually grew up in Israel, and my mom worked at a hospital, and she always had medical books around. And I, just kind of picked one up one day and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And fast forward a year after that, I was in 9th grade. And in Israel, growing up, you have to pick a subject that you want to volunteer in in your freshman year of high school. And then a lot of people continue and a lot of people just stop it after their 1 year. Well, on the first week of school, they'll have different subject matter experts come in from law enforcement, EMS, fire, all these cadets, Boy Scouts. And they had one for working on the ambulance. So I picked a few actually that I wanted to volunteer in, but that one really kind of struck a chord. And after that first day of our EMT school in ninth grade, I was just hooked, and I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. So kind of continued that, and as I moved to America, a few years later, continued down that route, went to paramedic school, worked as a paramedic, and then I was stationed at a fire station as a paramedic, and then just fell in love with the dynamics of doing medicine, but also doing all the other operational things like rescue and fire, and interacting with law enforcement, of course, and all our first responders. So that's kind of how it all for me came together.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't think a lot of people associate firefighters with having to have a tremendous amount of medical knowledge, but the first people on scene to render aid usually is the firefighter or the paramedics, and they're all medic trained, whether you're on an engine or SWAT or a team. In my experience, when I go out to a medical call, I can't wait for the fire personnel to get there because they're the guys that really know what to do.
There's only so much you guys can do.
Right. And that's kind of what you do, right, Ofer? You travel the country and you teach emergency rescue techniques.
Right. And one of my biggest passions is to kind of take that, what the sentence that you just said is, I can't wait for firefighters to get there to do the medicine. Well, I want people to realize that there's a lot they can do, and before we get there, there's a lot that officers can do. There's a lot that civilians can do before the officers get there. And it's really this chain of survival that, if done properly, we save lives. And just like it was for heart attack in the late 90s, when they realized that, oh, if we just wait for paramedics to come and start doing CPR, our numbers are never going to get good. And the survival rate from cardiac arrest was horrible. I mean, you're talking 60 to 70% of people didn't even get anything back as far as like pulses, and the survival was in like 1 or 2%. And now there's cities in Southern California here and around the country that survival rate is in the 60s, 70% in cardiac arrest, because they've done this chain of survival, which is you train people from when they call 911, they talk to a dispatcher that gives them the proper information, to doing the compressions, to now, first responders arrive in this continuing of care. Well, the same, I believe, is for trauma. If we have people that know how to recognize where a stop the bleed kit is, how to use a tourniquet, how to pack a wound, how to put, open an airway, and then they can kind of use that as a stopgap measure. So then when law enforcement comes, which are going to get there before fire, that is just a fact, then they can maybe apply another tourniquet that they have with them in their kit. And then when the fire department comes, EMS, we can maybe start, give a medication that helps with the clotting, decompress the lung, and then we take them to the surgeon. So it's really this kind of team concept that I really love teaching and talking about, and been involved in national policy on it. And that is this whole community approach that I'm really excited about.
And who do you mainly cater to? I know you mentioned law enforcement personnel and fire personnel, but do you have classes that people can, our listeners, if they wanted to sign up for, could they sign up?
So we try to do a few a year that are kind of free and open to the public. As the company that I run, which is High Threat Innovations or Trauma Pack. But mostly we kind of contract with businesses, with school districts, with police departments, fire departments, and we go and put on a specific training that's customized to them. Probably by the time this is airing, we've already had our Stop the Bleed month, and we just did a big event that we're hosting in Rancho Cucamonga, completely free to the public. We'll have more throughout the year as businesses host that, but that's an opportunity for us as instructors, as first responders, to give back our time and donate that to the public. Now, there's a lot of departments that are also doing that as part of their normal operations. The department I work with in Southern California, we were offering a class once a month with our counterpart, and that was the beauty of it, is me and another law enforcement officer were teaching it together, and the bantering is fun, it's interactive for the participants, and then we're teaching different perspectives and mindset on this response and mitigation of a high threat event. So there is classes available. If you want to learn just specifically how to stop the bleed, a lot of trauma centers offer them, and a lot of police and fire departments offer them. If you want to learn kind of the whole gamut, which is surviving an active shooter event and stop the bleed, there's departments that offer that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they could, if they were interested in what you have, they can just go to your website and request maybe you coming to their agency or private business.
Absolutely. So we have through our website, you can schedule classes or just contact me directly. And we literally build a class specific to the need of that facility. So if we're going to maybe like a nursing home to teach that staff, well, we're going to do the class there. And it's specific to, well, you can't just run, hide, and fight when you have to take care of a patient who's bedridden. So how do you skip the run part and go straight to maybe hardening your target and barricading? If you're a kindergarten teacher, are you really going to be able to control these kids if you tell them to run, right? Versus a high school teacher she's not going to be able to keep up with the students if they're running. So we really try to tailor the psychology and the mindset of this response model to the group at hand, as well as the medicine behind it. Maybe they don't have wound packing material and they just have tourniquets. So we make it appropriate. But we have the gear that we recommend is in line with the national guidelines for these events.
I'm glad you brought up the psychology of the victim, because until now we discussed what the person that's rendering the treatment's doing, the psychology and the makeup, the physical abilities. But what about the victim? I remember in the academy we had this survival portion talking about what happens if you get shot, and the instructor was talking about how you should just be angry. You should get so angry that the adrenaline is flowing, and I guess the adrenaline is going to help keep you alive until you get proper treatment. What are some of the things that you tell people who could potentially be victims?
Well, what I tell them is this, that the number one enemy facing you as a survivor in this, hopefully, is denial. And denial is rooted, as you guys know, as we teach this and study this, it's rooted in two concepts. It's normalcy bias and social proof. And social proof is basically, we look at our surrounding. If you're sitting with, we'll take you, Kristen, as an example. You're sitting with a bunch of other dispatchers, and all of a sudden you hear pop, pop, pop. Your instinct is to look at what others are doing, and they're looking at you. And if no one says anything, then everybody's thinking, well, I don't want to be stupid and say, did you guys hear that? Because then they're going to think I'm weird. But the reality is, and that's whether that's in a high school group, adults, any group, that no one wants to sound stupid. So no one calls upon, hey, what was that? But as soon as someone says it and you go, hey, did you guys hear that? Then people are empowered and go, yeah, I did. Let's act upon it. And then normalcy bias is we tend to think that what we heard or what scares us and harming us is we're trying to make it normal. So you're at Home Depot and you hear a loud bang, we try to associate it with what could that be that's normal for this environment. Well, that could be a pallet that's fallen. So that would be normal, but we won't want to assume that it's a bomb or a gunshot. So what I tell people is denial is rooted in those, and that is your number one enemy. Get past the denial. I've studied a lot of these active shooters. I've spoken to a lot of survivors, and I remember one specific from the San Bernardino shooting on December 2nd, 2015. She was telling me, I was convinced this was a drill. There's people coming in, they're shooting, and I'm thinking, wow, everybody's in on it except for me. Like, what a great drill. It's so realistic. And then she's looking and she's like, wow, that hurt. And she's like, wow, this blood feels so real. And then it only clicked that this was real. So she was in that denial of normalcy bias and so forth. So what I would tell people is take action. Don't be afraid to act. The worst thing is that you're wrong and you overreacted, but don't be afraid. Don't be in denial. That's the number one thing I can tell people, to not have that and have that warrior mindset of fighting through it. Like you said, Aram, is you got to fight through it. And as responders too, we have to encourage people to, hey, I need you to stay with me. I need you to fight, and you're going to be okay, because they need to hear that, and that's important.
Yeah,
that's incredible. For great advice. As I'm hearing this, I'm thinking about my personal gear. I don't carry anything but a tourniquet. But I know, like, when fire personnel arrive, we're so thankful because they have everything. They have, you got a big pack and a lot of resources. What do you see? Because a lot of our listeners are law enforcement personnel. What do you think then, if I had to only carry one thing on my belt or in my pocket, what do you think it should be?
So I have to answer from two perspectives because the answer is actually different for Kristen than it is for you, and I'll explain why. So a lot of the data that was originally derived from of what is the number one cause of death all came from combat. So it came from the military, and we had these huge numbers that show that. And when I'm talking today, just know I'm talking about the survivable death injuries. So a gunshot wound to the head, if the person unconscious, they're severe trauma is non-survivable. So there's nothing we can do for that as immediate responders. But I'm talking about the injuries that, hey, if you would have done this, you would have survived. So the number one cause of death that's preventable death that's survivable in combat is bleeding from the arms and leg. And if you think combat and law enforcement, you're wearing a body armor. So they see less chest trauma in combat, in law enforcement, because you guys are wearing vests. But if Kristen is in her, in her environment, a shooter comes in, the chance that he's going to hit her arm and legs while she's sitting down and not prepared and turning towards him is much lower actually in the arms and legs than it is in the torso. So civilians, what we found with the data showing, die more from chest injuries that are fixable to an extent, and law enforcement and military die more from arms, legs, necks, armpit. As you know, if you're holding your gun, you have that white shirt, you have that visible area here in your armpit, and then in the groin. So I would say for law enforcement, for sure, the number one thing is a tourniquet. And vice versa, what's actually for civilian, the number one thing is actually a chest seal. The data is showing that chest seals have a higher chance of saving you from a preventable death injury in the civilian environment. Just because if you think pure, hitting the target, it's easier to hit the torso if you're just spraying people. And the biggest data was taken from the Pulse nightclub. Is there was a lot of torso trauma when he was spraying in there, and more people had those types of injuries that were survivable to the chest versus arms. Now, obviously, it's so easy to fix an extremity wound. So I would say if you're civilian, carry all the things you can use, right? And when you're law enforcement, carry as much as you can that's practical from your real estate on your belt. But to answer simply your question, tourniquet for you, and for Kristen, a chest seal.
Yeah, I didn't even think, it's amazing that you have that perspective. Obviously you're in the industry, and you don't know what you don't know. And obviously before you mentioned that, I didn't even consider how exposed our civilian staff are. But when people come to a police department, they just assume everybody's a bad guy. If they want to inflict pain on cops, they just assume anybody working there's a bad guy.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. Maybe dispatch centers need to be a little bit more secure.
Yeah, we've just had a few people walk in, no big deal.
So, I've seen in TV and in movies, people use improvised tourniquets out of like shoelaces, belts. Does that really work?
Or ripped t-shirts.
Yeah.
So, so the simple answer is maybe. And that's because there's data that shows that, and the data is always changing, and we have to evolve with the data. The reality is too, there's a balance between, it's not always practical to always have a tourniquet, just like you can't always have a firearm. We know when you're off duty, there is going to be a time you don't have it.
Always have a firearm.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I just want to be dramatic.
So that's true. I just, it's that one time you don't, right? But it's the same with medical. It's the one time you don't carry that tourniquet. And if you don't train with making an improvised tourniquet, you're really going to feel bad later that you didn't have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you don't have a choice. Right. So the simple answer is that there is a much higher failure rate with improvised tourniquets. And there's a lot of different variances in improvised tourniquets versus a commercial grade tourniquet that is meant specifically for that. Wow. So of the improvised tourniquets, yes, they will buy you time, but the best improvised tourniquet is one that is at least 1.5 inches thick. So a shoelace is only, very thin. A bungee cord is very thin. There's a lot of gimmicky stuff out there that are even considered commercial tourniquet or marketed as that, but they're very thin. And we won't get into brands, and some people know what those are. But the best improvised would be something that's at least 1.5 inches wide and that has a windlass device that will create mechanical advantage in a circumferential way. So there's ways to do that. There's even techniques that we teach. So like think of the Boston Marathon bombings. There were I believe there were 28 or 29 tourniquets applied. And of those, only 9 were commercial, meaning people improvised. It was taboo at that time to even consider using a tourniquet, because people, you'll say, and I'm sure you can finish my sentence, well, if you put a tourniquet on, they're going to lose their
Limbs,
right,
yeah.
their limb. And that was like taught to people. And the data shows that that is simply false. You have 2 full hours before there's even nerve damage if you put a tourniquet on 100% correct, which means there's 0 blood flow distal to it. So you have 2 hours, you're going to get to a hospital most likely, or a professional is going to get there and know how to decrease it to something else. But yes, the improvised will work to an extent, but as a professional, I would say use a proper tourniquet that's meant for that. And really, there's only a few that are really recommended by the military, and you got to just make sure that what you're buying is recommended and not some knockoff tourniquet that's going to break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the important lesson there is, it's better to have one if you don't.
And not, yeah.
Use something, because it's better to do something
than nothing. Yeah, but I'm even trying to think of anything I have that's that thick.
Probably your purse strap.
Yeah, but you would have to somehow detach that from your purse.
Yeah.
How am I going to cut that off my purse?
Carry a knife.
So a lot of people will say, oh, I have a tourniquet, I have my belt, right? And the problem we see with belts, and it's been shown, is if I take a belt and I put it through that last loop, I can cinch down, I create a mechanical advantage. And the goal ultimately is to stop blood flow below that area, right? So you may have a slowing down for a second. And we did just a very spontaneous video of this a while back, and it had I think 90,000 views, because I put a Doppler where you can listen to the heart sound, to the pulse, so there's blood flow. And I had someone that wasn't trained. He was just there to assist in the class, and he put on someone who's very skinny, so it's even easier. And someone skinny put on his belt, and he was able to stop it. But he literally just turned his body a little bit, because you're not going to be perfect all the time until paramedics arrive, right? So he just turned his body a little bit and just let go a tiny bit, and you could hear the blood flow again. And then we gave him a tourniquet with no experience, and he put it on tight, and then he could let go and walk away and help someone else. And it was so there is the disadvantage of a belt, is that you can't maintain the pressure that you initially put, and that's the main problem with a belt.
And you can't help others either if there's more victims.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome. So as you mentioned videos on your page, so if some of our listeners want to visit your Instagram, you have a very popular Instagram page. Do you provide some quick lessons on there or some quick tips?
Yeah, our goal is to really just provide free education that's quality and that's from a first responder. It's not gimmicky. It's not something we don't do. The equipment we use in our videos and the tips that we give are all stuff that we've used, that we've learned or learned from other mentors of ours. And we want to share it. We're going to be an empowered society that's more resilient if we share information, just like you guys are sharing perspectives on your industry and your field, and how we can be more resilient as a society.
Yeah, he has a lot of good videos on his Instagram.
Yeah, I looked through it. I follow you on there, and it's very entertaining stuff. Anything that gives me a new wrinkle in my brain, I find entertaining. So if you're one of those people that constantly craves that type of education, stuff that you can apply right now, it's not something that you have to continue for hours and hours. This is something that you can learn real quick, continually train on your own, and maybe become proficient at it without even having to get a certificate. But I think that's completely needed in this day and age right now with what's going on in the world.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Talking about what's going on in the world, you're from Israel. You moved here when you were 17. What made you move to America?
So at that time, my parents were getting divorced, and as a young boy, needing a father influence, and was just kind of torn between the mom and dad situation, and decided to spend time with my dad and move to the States. And that kind of changed a little bit of the trajectory for me. And a lot of positive came from that, but a lot of positive was also growing up in Israel and being around a completely different culture and mentality, and truly realizing how good we have it here. There's just definitely a different perspective. So I started in EMS in a westernized country, obviously Israel, but working hand in hand with, you know, what frustrates me is that the portrayal of what we see in the media, and is truly is two sides to every story. And what's hard for me is that, you know, I work closely with Palestinians, with Israeli Arabs, and from that whole region. And our goal truly was to save lives. There was never like, you're Jewish, you know, he's Arab. You know, there was none of that. And we all got along really well, and all because we had the same mission. But like any society, right, all it takes is a few bad apples to ruin it for the rest of the people. And not to get into the Jewish and or the Israeli Palestinian conflict, but it truly is, depending who you ask, right? It's like a cup. You know, you could look from one side and you see, you know, it could be Aram's face on this cup and go, no, this is Aram's cup. And you look from the other side and go, no, this is Kristen's cup. What are you talking about? Are you blind, right? And that's the problem, is there's two media sources feeding this conflict. There's two cultures. There's two, great grandfathers telling their kids and their great grandkids of the stories. And really what's needed is for the people to talk, for the people that are down in the conflict. I mean, they're going through the same thing in essence. You know, a 10-year-old that's getting bombed on one side of the border and a 10-year-old that's getting bombed on another side. The emotional stuff that they're feeling, that they're going through, you know, a bomb is a bomb, a missile is a missile. They're not knowing they think the other side is trying to hurt each other. So, but they're going through the same thing. If really we keep it to the simple concept of let those two sides talk. And I think everybody at the end of the day wants peace, right? We want peace for our children. We want our kids to grow up and have it better than us. And that's ultimately what the two sides want. So it's frustrating to see that, you know, maybe different groups hijack that and, you know, want something different, or tell people they want something different, and you know, start war, initiate war for everybody. And it's frustrating. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about, we want to live peacefully, both sides, and that's it.
I think that gave me chills when you said that, because you could totally change the subjects in that, what you just said, and apply it to police and detractors of police. And it's exactly what we want. We want peace. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides. If you would have just completely said what you said and just changed the subjects of police and the detractors of police, would have completely applied. There's a moral to that and a good lesson behind it. I think, thank you for sharing a little bit about your culture and perspective on what's going on. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, like you said, and we rely on the news. I'm not culturally Israeli or Palestinian. I don't have any kind of influence, or I don't know anybody personally that has an insight as to what's going on culturally there. And I want to commend you for not being biased, but giving that global perspective, and just giving people a little bit of a perspective from both sides.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, you know, when you said something earlier that you grew up until you were 17, living in Israel, and you come to the States, and America is completely different. It's a land of opportunity. You hear all those cliches, but really, I mean, how different is it for a teenager to come to America? And is it all of a sudden there's, you know, freedoms, or did you have the same freedoms, or did you feel like you were different than everybody, or did you feel accepted?
So I was really, the school I went to was a predominantly African-American and Hispanic. That was where my dad had a place. So I naturally went to the school near the house. And I was really into basketball at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be a basketball star. And so in Israel, I was pretty good. You know, I thought I had a chance. So when I came to the tryouts, and I was like, wow, there's no other like white players here. This is going to be interesting. And, you know, they were laughing at me saying, hey, you know, girls volleyball is, you know, tomorrow's tryout. And then, but I, you know, held my own and made the team. And, but it was it was a uniqueness of it's really kind of a melting pot, really. Like if you can, I think that the beauty in America is we don't care your color, your nationality. If you can provide for what we're all trying to do, so whether it's a high school basketball team, then you're welcome. If you're here to make things worse, then why are you here? Like, why are you making things worse?
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of our country is like, hey, we all want the American dream, right? We all want to be successful. We all want to provide for our families. Or if you're at a workplace, you want to do your job to the best. If you're a fireman, you're on B shift or A shift, you want to be better than C shift, and night shift wants to be better than. It's all kind of this fun competitive, and I think that's what is great about America. But I think sometimes we forget that we're all American and we all need to stick together and remember like the common goals of just the pursuit of happiness. As silly as it sounds, I remember kind of not to oversimplify, but I remember thinking, wow, it's really easy here. Like you just do what you need to do and you succeed. It's almost like it's taken for granted because, I remember just being on a bus, not to get into the terrorism and going, because there would be a rash of bombings. And, I'm an 11-year-old kid trying to get to basketball practice. And then I see someone that I think is suspicious. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to get off the bus. Those are things that I grew up with. And then hearing, that a different bus blew up later. We don't have that here. And maybe we do a little bit now with, after 9/11 and people still forget about that. And there's people now born that don't even know what that is. And we forget really fast here. And I think that's the downside of our culture here is that we seem to forget really fast. Where growing up in Israel, when we used to say never forget, it actually means a lot more because we don't have another choice. Like you're surrounded by, unfortunately, countries and governments that want to kill you. And the other side is an ocean, so you don't have where to go. So you can't afford to forget. And I came from a family that was all murdered. Half of my family was murdered in the Holocaust. So when we say like never forget the Holocaust, like it has a different meaning. So coming to America, I felt like, wow, what an opportunity you want to be a fireman? Do what you got to do and you become a fireman. You want to be an entrepreneur? Make it happen. Like there's no time to sit and, dwell on the past. Enjoy what you have because it's really, it's in front of you. You just got to take it.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I think you're a tremendous testimony to what it means to truly be American. And I think we're all blessed that much more from hearing your story.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time, Opher. I think our audience certainly agree that you're someone worth following. Just to recap where they can follow you, they can follow you at Trauma Pack. That's trauma, and then the word pack is spelled PAK, all one word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on Instagram and Facebook. And you also have a YouTube channel with a slightly longer address, but if you search Trauma Pack, it'll come up. But thank you for your time. It's been a blessing having you. Wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And we hope to get you back on the show one day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And again, I appreciate what you guys do. And just, for all our followers, remember that we are, the first responder family truly is unique. And just like we stick together, I think our society can learn from that is we all have each other's back. We should be able to laugh and joke and poke at each other. But at the end of the day, we're either all first responders like in this podcast, but we're all Americans. And I hope we can all learn to remember to keep the main thing.
Amen.
Right. We can also agree that cops are slightly ahead in the first responder pecking order, right?
And dispatchers hold
you don't
down
have to answer that.
everything.
You don't have to answer that, but just remember we got guns. Just kidding. All right, brother. It's been a pleasure. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you. You guys be safe. Take care.
Bye.